Welcome back to Man vs. Weed, the non-cannabis material review podcast. I'm your 100% cannabis material host, Tango Hotel Charlie. If you've never listened before, this podcast is a critical look at mostly legal cannabis from the perspective of a 3-decade-long cannabis vet, coming to you from beautiful, burning BC, home of the world-renowned BC Bud. We take that shit seriously here, and we don't take kindly to assholes selling bunk weed. Today's sample is a dried flower offering from BZAM. And as you know from the title, it's Macslurry. First of all, let's take a look at BZAM. It all started with a completely different weed company called Ascent Industries. Back in 2019, Ascent, like most of these LPs, were up to some shady shit. Health Canada caught them doing unauthorized activity, and they were the first LP to have their license suspended. They would not be the last. I'm sure that this title is quite an honor. However, you can't make money or fulfill obligations to buy greenhouses on a suspended license. So they did what corporations do and filed for bankruptcy in Canada. I say Canada specifically because none of this had any impact on their businesses down in Denver and Oregon. At this point, Ascent was a wounded animal, and who loves a good animal on death's door? Vultures, that's who. Enter BZAM Al-Ghanem. BZAM Al-Ghanem is a spoiled rich kid from Kuwait. Him and his brother inherited their billions from their father's business when he died, a multinational conglomerate named Al-Ghanem Industries. And they've got corporate and political ties to everyone you can imagine. BZAM was once the chairman of the Gulf Bank of Kuwait. Him and his brother are now 2 of the top 5 richest people in Kuwait, and they hate each other. Turns out it wasn't enough to inherit daddy's billions, so the 2 fought each other in court over the inheritance, and how it should be split up between them. This lawsuit spawned another lawsuit when BZAM's brother and nephew hired hackers to break into his email account to gain information that could be used against him in the inheritance case. But the black market is where you find the organized crime, right? Anyways, BZAM and his wife bought some multi-million-dollar mansions in LA and decided to sink their culture vulture talents into the Canadian legal cannabis market. They had already purchased 2 other cannabis companies, and when they saw Ascent's corpse, they descended on it faster than you can say protein carbohydrates. The Berkeley graduate picked up Ascent for a meager $41.5 million, of which they only had to pay $29 million in cash, and took the rest in obligations. That, of course, would have been that greenhouse Ascent was looking at in the Pitt Meadows and Maple Ridge area. All of these companies are affiliated with Al-Ghanem's company, Gulf Bridge Inc., which is based out of the Cayman Islands. Next, they moved on a tiny town in BC called Midway. Midway is a population of 640 people in the interior of BC. From his Bel Air mansion, BZAM bought the Midway Farm and historic Midway Hotel in 2020. He turned the hotel into lodging for people who worked on his cannabis farm. When asked by reporters, Midway Mayor Martin Fromm was surprised to learn that the farm and hotel purchases were part of a string of deals over the span of 18 months with money from a Kuwaiti billionaire. Calls to Al-Ghanem were not returned, and BZAM marketing director Jordan Winnett wouldn't reveal why Al-Ghanem decided to invest in cannabis, saying the billionaire preferred to stay out of the story. Perhaps it's because it seems kind of greasy for a guy to take his money from a country that hands out death sentences for cannabis to come to Canada and cash in on it, while Canadian citizens will still get locked up for doing the same thing. As an example of his greasiness, this billionaire donated $2,000 to a high school in Midway, the town he's feeding on. That seemed cool until I read that in exchange for that money, he required 15 students to clean up garbage and debris from his newly purchased properties. That's right, a billionaire, instead of paying people to clean up his properties, made it look like he was doing a good deed and got children to do it for him. Which made me think, who were the kids that had to do that work? Kids being punished? Perhaps they had been caught smoking weed. Who can say? So for those keeping score, shady billionaires who run international conglomerates are allowed to pay to play, but if you sell your friend a bag of weed to help pay your rent, you could face up to 14 years in jail, plus all the ruined life that comes with that. Pretty great, huh? And when you're arguing in favor of higher-priced cannabis, these are the guys that you're fundraising for. I guess you'd rather give your money to a spoiled Kuwaiti billionaire in an $8 million Bel Air mansion than give it to a Canadian struggling to eat. So today's sample, as you know, is Macslurry by BZAM. Is that an acronym? No, it's the name of the spoiled rich kid that owns the company, obviously. Once again, there were no grams to be found, so I had to get an eighth. I was told that they don't know why there are no grams, but that maybe it's because the LPs are using all the grams in pre-rolls, as though grams are a limited, finite thing and they can't just make more of them. For those paying attention, they give me a different bullshit reason for no grams every time I go in there. This Macslurry sample was $32 for 3.5 grams. That works out to about $9 a gram, plus tax, or $252 an ounce. It came in a black Ziploc pouch, which is in my opinion the superior packaging. Speaking of which, the label actually really impressed me with way better information than any other brand yet. It says it was harvested on April 30th, 2021, and that it was packaged on June 24th, 2021. This is great and gives you a much clearer picture of the chain of custody. Also included was a detailed breakdown of the terpene analysis, along with the total THC and CBD content. This sample tested at 23% THC and a negligible amount of CBD. The terpenes listed were 0.6% beta-caryophyllene, 0.5% limonene, and 3% farnesene. Beta-caryophyllene is the most common terpene and is known for its stimulating effects. It is also the first phytocannabinoid to be found outside of cannabis. It can be found in black pepper and hops. The oxidation product is called caryophyllene oxide, and it's what drug dogs are actually trained to detect. Limonene is the citrus terpene, and its aroma is associated with stimulating, mood-elevating effects. Clinical studies have even shown it to be an antidepressant. And finally, farnesene is found in apple skins and turmeric. It can provide a green apple smell and is known for its anti-inflammatory and tumor-inhibiting traits, making it helpful in treating colon and pancreatic cancers. It is also known to provide a calming effect and also acts as a natural insect repellent. Insert joke here. Information is power, as they say, and the more informed a decision you can make about your cannabis purchase, the better. But you already know that. That's why you're taking the time to listen to me yap about it right now. When I cracked open the seal, I was happy to find an orangey tangerine smell. Inside, the buds were mostly decent sized and frosty looking. However, there was quite a bit of scrunt included. Large chunks of stem and leafy detritus. The weight was exactly 3.5 grams, which is obviously better than being underweight, but be aware that you are paying for all that scrunt and it does add up over time. The flowers are light green with orange hairs and dark purple sugar leaves. The buds seem spongy and well cured. As I said, to my surprise and delight, the terpenes are present. To my nose, it smells like a tangy clementine. Sorta orange, sorta tangerine. Really nice smelling, which is a welcome change. Next, I put the buds under the scope. As I tweeted about, I was looking at these buds for like an hour. I've had some bad experiences with contaminated legal cannabis, so I wanted to really inspect each bud. For the most part, they look great. The trichomes look healthy and not abused. They are full and the heads are present. There's a good mix of amber, clear, and cloudy trichomes. Overall, the cannabis itself looked great. However, there were several black dots and strange-looking things. Again, I looked at these for like an hour, and I was really looking, but there were black specks sporadically. Some fuzzier, like maybe peat moss or something, and some more round, like maybe bug poop or eggs, I don't know. One particular bud had what looked like a brownish bug body on it with frazzled little legs sticking out. Super disappointing considering everything else. It's pretty obvious when you see it though, because you have a bunch of green and clearish looking color of the trichomes and some amber, sure, but those are obvious. Occasionally you will see the fuzzy orange hairs, those two are obvious. So when you see a black dot or a crusty bug body, they really stand out. When I find one, I reset and try to refine them again just to be sure. I considered the possibility of the dark purple leaves and that it could be leaf debris, but I actually found a piece of leaf in the scope and it was clearly purple and not black. Whatever it is, it's super unfortunate and I hope they can clean it up in the future. Now, because it wasn't over dry, it busted up pretty nicely. Though it was still dry enough to crumble with my fingers, it didn't turn to dust. But it also didn't fluff up like an excellent cured cannabis. And wasn't really sticky either. It rolled up easily since it wasn't powdery, but it looked like a tiny joint for a gram. That citrus flavor persisted in the smoke and was also complemented with some peppery spiciness from that beta-caryophyllene. Goes to show that terps do make a difference. It burned fine all the way down with no relights and no sparkles. The ash was gray, indicating it could have been cleaner, but it wasn't dark gray or black. The high was actually fairly strong considering how small the joint looked. It was fast-acting and a heady, creative high. Although I'm not someone who gets lazy from any cannabis, so your results may vary. Unlike most legal cannabis, the effects were rather long-lasting, somewhere around a couple hours. Overall, relatively impressive considering some of the unsmokable garbage I've had to wade through. So, is it a recommend? I mean, I gotta be honest and say in general terms, the flower was really nice, aside from the contamination. Again, I can't say what it is for sure. I can only tell you what I saw. Whatever it is, it's super disappointing, because the flower was otherwise really nice. Sure, the trim could have been cleaner, but that was a fairly minor complaint compared to the contamination. However, all that aside, I don't know how I would feel giving my money to a spoiled Kuwaiti billionaire. Cannabis legalization should be for everyone, not just those with the money and influence. More and more it seems obvious that cannabis was only legalized to make the rich get richer while still locking up Canadians for doing the same thing they're doing. It's a pay-to-play system, and it's not the legalization I voted for. So for those reasons I would have to say no. I would not recommend BZAM cannabis. Don't hack me, bro. Thanks for listening to another episode of Man vs. Weed. Follow me on Twitter at StreetVillain, and if you would like to support the show in any way, please contact me at manvsweedthc@gmail.com, or just subscribe and recommend my podcast to another weedhead. If all that sounds like work, fuck it. Get high, relax, and free the weed.